Hello everyone, this is Bob and Threadbare, and welcome back to the Human Revolution. Now, there are people running around back there. I don't have any collision detection, but okay. Huh, it's just a little too far away for me to make the jump. I mean, of course there's an invisible wall there too, but you know what I'm getting at.
This is not a good time to talk to anyone from DP.
Sure thing, brother.
I ain't got nothing for you. Check with the man. And keep your hands where I can see them.
How may I be of service?
I suppose this place hasn't changed much. But it does have a new selection, hence why I now have a mine template. Well, 2 of them, for that matter. Oh, 3 of them, excuse me. So yeah, now I have all mines instead of just the other stuff. And I also got 3 weapon upgrades. Yeah, combat rifle needs the damage boost the most. And shotgun takes the longest to reload. That looks good.
What?
Now, yeah, I just
Oh,
I had one too many mines there. I wanted a neat stack 3. Alright. Huh. Looks like the ex-cop is gone. Let's see what people are saying in the alleyways here.
Hey, sweetheart.
I'm a little shaken up, but I'm just glad we got off the streets.
I almost shit myself when that group of cops came blazing around the corner.
We were seconds from getting trampled.
It's all the Illuminati, man.
You hurt, man?
They're
Be careful
behind
out
us.
there, man.
Good idea to get off the main streets. We almost got trampled by the cops.
Yeah, I heard.
Shit. Box guards in the street. Nothing good's gonna come of this. Goddamn cops. Always overreacting. This is gonna end in bloodshed.
Listen, I probably don't know any more
Did you
about
see
this
what the
than
cops did? They just stormed in and started.
Take a walk, buddy.
What do you want? Don't hurt me! Please, just leave me alone.
Training exercises for augmented soldiers? How did they think this was gonna go over with the public?
I haven't seen the footage, so I'm not gonna make any assumptions.
Well, I have, and it's exactly what people are saying it is.
How can you say that? It's so easy to doctor footage these days. The first moon landing? Hello?
What do you think of this super soldier thing?
I am
People
one.
don't riot for nothing.
Did you see the footage? They think Seraph is breeding super soldiers or something.
You can no longer tell the difference between the truth and their lies. There's no shelter from the all-seeing eye. It will find you. There's a sickness coming, my children. Gray and deadly. It will come from the backs of 12 kings, and we will bow to them.
And that's Grey Death and MJ-12.
Then it will be too late. Open your eyes, my friends. We've been blind for too long, and now we stand at the edge of the abyss. It's almost too late. The city burns down around your ears, and you do nothing. You wait for them to save you? I promise you, you'll learn to fear the machine men. They're among us. You know, hidden in plain sight. And their masters mold the way we think. They spew their poison into your ears and you listen.
Well, now he's repeating himself.
You can no longer tell the
They're
difference
rioting because
between
of some
the truth
news
and their
reports
lies.
about experiments
Looks like
on live
that news
soldiers.
story really got people worked up. There's big
There's
crowds
no
at the
shelter.
convention center protesting against super soldiers.
It
Damn
will find you.
human body purists. Every single one of them should be thrown
There's
in
a
jail as
sickness
agitators.
coming, my
You think a
children.
riot's gonna stop me from getting
Gray,
augmentations if I
deadly.
want them? Fuck no.
I don't know how it
Come.
happened. 1 second it was a peaceful demonstration near the
I was there.
The next,
We
people are
will
running
foul
towards
them.
grabbing
And
anything
people
they
got
can.
out of
Then
control.
it will be too late.
I don't know. I blame it on a few
Open your
instigators.
eyes,
It
my
only takes a
friends.
few, you know.
There's a goddamn riot going on and you want to chat me
Now
up?
we stand
Get
the
lost.
edge.
You want me to get the cops? There were no mood to fuck around tonight, and neither am I.
What started out as a peaceful gathering turned into a total mob scene. They made their way from the Limb Clinic to Sarif Plaza. Things are totally out of control.
You wait for them to save you?
You can't talk to the crazy guy, unfortunately. And like I was saying in the last video, the only stuff that's still around is stuff you didn't take the first time. So there's really no point in me exploring all of the apartments around here. I mean, the only reason I'm going up this one is because there's an arms dealer up here. You know, he also has new stock. Those are really the one big change.
This is really.
Yeah, I still get the egghead discount and everything. Now, what have we got here? Oh, rate of fire. Bunch of special weapon mods. But every weapon I am keeping already has those. And you know what? Those are actually pretty useful. Throw them out. They only detonate when you press the button. Now, what do we do about rate of fire here? Yeah. I maxed it out and everything. Ammo capacity, rate of fire. I just need a little more reload speed and more damage. We'll be maxed out.
Jensen, Sarif had me have the convention center security logs for you. Sandoval signed out. He isn't there.
Taggart will know where he went.
You really think he'll tell you in the middle of a riot? In front of all the media?
He will if I ask real nice.
Well, if that doesn't work, he also has a dressing room backstage. Seems to me a man like Taggart must keep close track of his employees. Speaking of which, I also backtraced that breach in our own firewall. The one Sarif opened but forgot to tell us about.
The one he was using right before he hired me. Right.
Looks like our boss was being chatty with a private detective named Brent Radford. He lives on Earl's Court. In case you want to get chatty with him, too.
Oh good, a side quest. And one that's a follow-up to a side quest we went through earlier, too. But yes, this means that we can go through one of the doors that was inaccessible before. And this does not look good. It certainly does not. Not sure what this guy's doing here, so let's just knock him out for right now. Call him a bodyguard.
Jensen? Oh, Christ.
Brent Radford?
In the flesh. For now.
How do you know my name? What happened here?
Answers for favors. There's a trauma kit I keep somewhere around here. Find it.
You need a doctor. I'll get help.
No. No time. They could be back. Any minute. Find the kit quickly. If you want answers.
I'll be back.
No point pressing him for details when he's bleeding out. But yeah, the trauma kit is nice and easy to find. And hey, it's a quest item, which means it has a description. Let's see what other stuff we've got here. We got the playback device we got from Eliza. Let's see here. I'm not sure if I looked at this second access card before. VIP pass card we got from Sarif. And Radford's trauma kit, which contains morphine.
Did you find the kit? Oh, sweet Jesus. The pain. Morphine.
You need a coagulant, dude.
This should help with the pain. Now tell me what's going on.
Those sons of bitches. I should have seen it coming. I knew from the moment Sarif got spooked that that this case would come back and bite me in the ass.
Seraph. So you're the investigator he hired to run a background check on me?
Detective. Or I was, until... Christ, fuck it. It hurts enough just trying to breathe. Point is, the goons that did this to me, professionals. I think your boss pissed off the wrong people, trying to dig up your dirt.
What people? What did you find?
No time to go into details. My storage unit, the sons of bitches, they're headed there now. Sarif had me uncover a ton of shit on you. Stuff even you don't know. Your parents, your real parents. The tests, the fire. What are you, Jensen? Some kind of freak?
Focus, Radford.
I mothballed the case in storage. It's in an alley. Behind the bank. Your files are there. But Michelle knows. Michelle knows more. You need to stop them.
Well, I could just leave right now.
Fuck. You robot. This is all your fault. Give me another shot. Morphine. Or go fuck yourself.
I suppose.
Focus, Radford.
Ah, that hit the spot. I think I could get used to this stuff. Hey, I'm feeling a little more talkative. Already. Robot.
Yeah, morphine addiction is a serious problem, man.
Who did this to you?
Guys in suits. One of them, David or Daniel, something like that, British accent. He was in charge. Talked about a Mr. Gray. They were in a hurry. 4 of them. Not counting the one they left behind. Well-armed, disciplined. I didn't stand a chance. Maybe that metal corpse you call a body will do better than mine did.
What were they looking for?
You robot. They wanted my information on you. Someone powerful has their eyes on you and is very interested in your past.
You mentioned someone named Michelle. Who's Michelle?
Your guardian angel.
Who is she?
Tell me, do robots even believe in angels? Or did they take that out of you? Did they take that away? You know, your soul, when they built you? Tell me, what was it like when you died, Jensen?
I know you're in a lot of pain, and the morphine is...
Just find her before they do. You owe her that much.
Why did Seraph stop the investigation? You said he was spooked. What spooked him?
You wouldn't believe me even if I told you. Hell, even I don't. I still don't believe it. You believe in ghosts, Jensen?
Seraph was spooked by ghosts.
Close enough. Illuminati. Conspiracies, theories, it's all bullshit. But you stink of it, Jensen. Enough to have your boss, one of the most powerful men in the world, look away. You're a ghost. A fucking tragedy. Everything you touch, everything that touches you, dies.
Dude, come on.
Radford, I know you're in a lot of pain, but it's important you give me as many details as you can.
There's a storage unit in the alley, next to the bank, near the police department. That's where the suits are headed. I tried. Didn't give them anything. There's a safe. It has what you want. It'll get you to her. It'll lead you to her. To Michelle. The safe. They don't have the right combination. 4062. Remember.
Is there anything you can give me to help?
Take whatever you want. From here or the storage unit. There's a weapons cache. And some money. There.
I guess that's all we're gonna get.
I'm leaving. But I'll call in an ambulance. You'll be okay.
No. Those fucking animals. I can't move anything. I was turning around, pulling my gun when the first bullet hit me. The second one, they fucking paralyzed me.
I'm sure it's not as bad as you think. It might be a reaction to the morphine.
I know what morphine does. I also know what a 9mm round fired at less than 10 meters does to the thoracic vertebrae on impact.
You need a doctor. They can fix that.
I ain't turning into no freak. Even if I could afford the surgery, the augments, I'd rather die than be half a machine. And I sure as hell ain't gonna live the rest of my life in a wheelchair, shitting in a goddamn diaper.
Radford.
Listen, I know there's still a few more morphine shots. Another 2 should do the trick. Please, this is as close as I'm gonna get to begging you. Don't leave me like this. You owe me that much.
Why do you hate augmentation so much?
Because it ain't right. You can't go changing the way things are. You can't replace the real thing with an imitation. It ain't right. It ain't natural.
It can save your life.
No, you lose more than what gets left behind on the chopping block. You should know this by now.
Dude, this isn't Shadowrun. You don't have an essence score. Come on.
Neither is suicide.
Don't you fucking judge me, robot. You don't know what I've been through. Come on. This should be easy for you. I know Sarif didn't put blades in those arms just so you could trim the hedges.
Let's say I agree.
Is this what you really want?
There's a bear? Pope in the woods? Shit. I fucked that one up. Listen, robot. If I could do it myself, I would. I got no family left. No one left to mourn. It's for the best. I ain't gonna be no burden on society.
Last chance, Brent.
Just fucking do it.
How about no? You're a dick, so I'm going to use appease.
I don't think you really want to die, Radford. I think you're just scared. I was scared too. I didn't ask for any of this, just like you didn't ask for a bullet in the gut. But you can't blame me, or Sarif, or technology for what's happening here.
I wouldn't be in this mess if it wasn't for you and your damn past. I never should have taken the job, but I needed the work, the money. Even if I wanted to, I can't afford the fucking augmentation surgery. And I can't live like a cripple for the rest of my life.
Living through adversity is what makes us human. It's not flesh and blood or even bone that defines us. I might be more machine than flesh, but I'm still alive. I'm still human.
You got heart for a robot, I'll give you that. Tell you what, I'll play along with this little after-school special you got going on here. I'll get through this, but not because of this lovey-dovey bullshit charade. I'll live for the truth, for revenge. Whoever hired those suits, I'm going after those sons of bitches. I don't care how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. And Jensen, I don't know how bad you think your wounds were, but your boss, your friend Sarif, they butchered you. Went too far with the operation. You were an experiment, a test. But he's the one that made you a weapon. Almost makes me feel bad for you. Almost. Son of a bitch. Christ, that hurts.
Well, he's a bad guy. But yeah, I already read an email that the Jensen's legs weren't injured, but they replaced them anyway because they could. Because apparently he signed away his right to keep his legs in a, when he got hired on. Oh, hey. I repaired the wall here too.
Pritchard, I located Radford. He was attacked by men in suits. Private security, Secret Service types. I'm going after them.
What about Radford? Did you get anything out of him?
He's in pretty bad shape. You need to call it in. Get an ambulance to his apartment stat.
Got it. And Jensen, don't get yourself killed. Okay?
Oh, Francis. I didn't know you cared.
Don't flatter yourself. I care about the security of this company. You getting yourself killed compromises that. So don't be stupid.
Aw, they're almost getting along now. Gotta be careful here. You can see they're just around the corner.
Of course he is. I know Mr. Gray is landing tonight. We're working on it, yeah. Listen, believe me, we tried. The old man proved resilient. We left someone behind to watch him. If we need, we can go back, but I'm not sure how much more it can take. That's why we need Smith. We tried that already. Look, we can't get the safe open. That's why if you could, send Smith down. Right. Thank you, sir. Now we'll contact you as soon as we have the information.
Why did he call that a British accent? I mean, I suppose it's British Isles, but we would usually identify that as an Irish accent. I mean, I know he was out of it, but it was pretty clear, you know. Right, so those guys went down quietly, so this guy has no idea what's happened. Too bad for him. In case you're wondering why I did that quietly too, it's because the cops are fairly close by and I don't want to alert them and potentially have to, you know, deal with them the hard way. This guy almost said Mr. Darrow, by the way. Seemed pretty clear. Oh, no, that's a revolver. Man, nobody uses pistols anymore. Right, anyway, there's the safe the guy was talking about. That guy apparently couldn't crack it. But we got the code. And we could crack it ourselves if we wanted to. White helix slabs. And a pile of photographs. Now here's the funny thing, though. That does not tell us where Michelle is.
Access granted.
Instead, we're going to find her address here on this computer, which incidentally has responses from some of the emails that Seraph sent us way back the last time we were in Detroit. And actually, one of these is an intercepted email from, what's-her-face? Jensen's old love interest. And it's the same email you can read in the prologue section. But yeah, it looks like there's 4, but no. This is the important one. The 5th email. It can be hard to tell that there is such a thing because of the interface. But, well, the side quest doesn't progress unless you find it, so that's a good indication. Anyway, she's in another one of the apartments that you cannot reach until you activate it through a side quest. And there she is. Michelle Walters, was it? Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce that. Man, she's got some nice furniture. And the usual lack of a mirror. Just a shower stall, though. Well, let's have a chat.
Did I leave my door open? Wait, you're not from Rolling Mills. You're too handsome to be from Rolling Mills.
No, I'm not. Mrs. Michelle Walters, is it? My name's Adam Jensen.
No. You much too old to be him. You must be from Rolling Mills. And please, it's Miss Walters.
Brent Radford sent me. Do you remember him? He's a detective.
Yes, lovely gentleman. He still has my photos of Adam when he was a baby. Oh, could you be a dear and fetch them for me? I forgot who has them, though.
This is why you would still need to get into the safe anyway.
Are these the photographs?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I haven't seen Adam Jensen in such a long time. Forever, it seems. Such a happy baby.
Miss Walters, can you tell me about the boy in those photos?
The boy in those photos? Adam. Tragic, really, what happened to his parents. His real parents.
His real parents?
They died in that fire. Horrible, really. I was there. At least those other cribs were empty. I only had to save Adam.
Mrs. Walters, I really need you to focus. What are you talking about?
Why, I already told that nice detective all this already. About the experiments and the fire at White Helix Labs. We knew Adam was special. That's why his parents started the fire, so they didn't do the same thing to the next batch of babies.
So Adam's real parents were trying to protect him. But from what?
Why, from the conspiracy, of course. But I've said too much. Would you be a dear now and go fetch my dinner?
Miss Walters, please. I know it was a while ago, and remembering all the details might be hard, but do you think you can try and focus for a minute? What did you tell the detective?
Well, Mr. Radford and I spoke about many things. But don't you have meals to deliver? And where is my dinner?
In this case, you need to use the pheromones to get a little more information out of her.
I would love to hear more about the boy in those photographs.
Such a polite and handsome young man. It'll be my pleasure. The boy in the photo, Adam. Jensen was never really his last name, you know. We only gave that to him after the fire.
Fire?
At White Helix Lab. That's where Adam's real parents worked. At least I think they were his parents. All those babies, the gene therapy they went through. But Adam, Adam was special.
Special? How?
He survived what they did to those babies. He was one of a kind. Then, when we heard they were going to use him to inoculate the next batch of infants...
Wait, what were they doing to the babies?
I wish I could remember. I was just part of a nursing staff. But Adam's parents, they started the fire. Yes, I remember that. They asked me to hide Adam. Then they started the fire. Poor things. They never got out in time.
So they started a fire at White Helix Labs. And you hid me.
No, not you, dear. Adam Jensen. Or at least I think that was his name. Well, I gave him to the Jensens to raise. They were a lovely couple.
Miss Walters, my Adam's real parents, who were they?
I'm sorry. What were we talking about? Oh, when are them Rolling Mills people gonna get here with my dinner?
I think that's all we're going to get from her.
Thank you for your time, Miss Walters.
Oh, before I forget, if you see Adam, could you please give him this? It's for all the birthdays and Christmases I've missed. I've been saving them.
Well, it is for me, and she'd probably just save it forever if we didn't use it.
I'll make sure he gets it.
Thank you, dear. Why, he must be 12 or 13 by now. Make sure he gets something nice. Oh, hello, dear. Is it dinner time already? You remind me of someone. Have we met?
Pritchard, I need you to assign a temporary security detail to an apartment on Brooklyn Court until I can figure out a more permanent solution. The woman's name is Walters, Michelle Walters.
Security detail? What the hell, Jensen? Who is this woman?
She's family, but she's vulnerable. I'll explain later. Just do this for me, please. And not a word to Sarif. Can I trust you on this, Pritchard?
Christ, Jensen. All right. I'll do it. But there better be a damn good reason for this.
There is. I'll fill you in next time I see you. But right now I need to get back to work. And Pritchard, thanks.
Yeah.
You know what the sad part is? Because that was an optional side quest, we never get any ramifications from that.
Talk to anyone from DPD, sir.
There's never any follow-up. Oh well. Today, I'll be heading back to Dystopia Corner for the 1985 novel, The Handmaid's Tale. Don't have any more preliminaries than that, so let's get to it. About the author. Margaret Atwood was born in 1939 in Ontario, Canada. Her father was an entomologist, a person who studies insects for a living, and because of his job, the Atwoods spent the first 10 years or so of Margaret's life moving around in the northern woods of Canada. This upbringing taught her self-sufficiency, and it gave her an outsider's perspective on society that she would later use in her writing. When her parents finally settled down enough for her to go to school full-time, Atwood became a big fan of books and reading, and she decided when she was 16 that she would be a professional writer. When she was 22, she published her first book of poems through a small press, and in 1964, she published The Circle Game, a poetry collection with a larger printing run that went on to earn the Governor General's Award in 1966. This is one of the highest awards for literature in Canada, and The Handmaid's Tale, today's book, would later earn the same award. In addition to writing about the female experience, Atwood also wrote a few essays about her views on Canada's national identity. Specifically, she criticized it for being dominated both by American culture and by English politics. There's also an emphasis on survival in Canadian literature, both because of this domination and because Canadian winters are harsh and unforgiving even in the modern era. Of course, considering her personal history, I have to imagine that some of her analysis is based on her personal upbringing. Like I mentioned last week, Margaret Atwood has said that she doesn't write science fiction. She writes what is, at most, speculative fiction, because to her, science fiction refers exclusively to stuff like spaceships, squid aliens, robot uprisings, and ray guns, as opposed to the science fiction elements in her own books, which in The Handmaid's Tale includes large-scale environmental pollution, the complete obsolescence of paper money, and porn trucks, for when you need porn on the go. Or the post-apocalyptic future with bioengineered humanoids, which she depicts in her 2004 book, Oryx and Crake. Now, to be fair, The Handmaid's Tale, at least, is even less futuristic than 1984, but her insistence on this terminology irks me. It's an example of another thing I was describing earlier, the genre fiction ghetto that prevents authors of science fiction, fantasy, horror, and so on from getting the same level of dignity and respect as authors like Margaret Atwood, who use the same genre conventions and themes but in less obviously unrealistic settings. I don't know. It shouldn't matter, especially with the way the public at large loves science fiction and fantasy, but it still gets to me. I suppose I do take it kind of personally, since I am a proud speculative fiction author myself. But that's enough of a digression. I only brought it up because it has some faint parallels with the themes in today's novel. The setting. Yep, that's right, the setting. Much like 1984, The Handmaid's Tale is more of an exploration of a world than it is the tale of the person who lives in it. But while I covered the setting second for 1984, this time I'm going to do it first, because the explanation of what's happening to the world provides a lot of context for what happens to the protagonist. According to the historical notes section at the end of the book, The Handmaid's Tale takes place at the end of the 20th century, so somewhere between the year the book was published, 1985, and 2000. However, the differences between the Handmaid's world and our own seem to extend back for decades, which would imply that this is actually an alternate history. Like I said before, the world in Handmaid has completely gotten rid of physical currency, and the government has not passed any pollution regulation laws, apparently, resulting in omnipresent toxic waste spills, radiation leaks, and other health hazards. At the same time, the acceptance of abortion, birth control, women in the workplace, pornography, and prostitution has gone on to pretty much even greater extremes than they did in real life, with men apparently able to get both dirty magazines and prostitutes delivered right to their door. Between the pollution and the birth control, and towards the end, mostly the pollution, the birth rate drops catastrophically. It gets so bad that would-be mothers resort to stealing babies out of grocery carts and kidnapping children on their way to school. This is ultimately the motivation that leads to the revolution orchestrated by the Sons of Jacob, a new and fictional Christian sect. The book doesn't really describe how the Sons pulled off their coup d'etat, but it involved assassinating the president and both houses of Congress simultaneously, imposing martial law, and then replacing the armed forces, the National Guard, and the police with their own private army. Once in power, at least within the eastern United States, the Sons of Jacob rename the nation Gilead after a location in the Bible, start persecuting other religions, and start restricting the rights of women. Jews, Muslims, and other non-Christians are their first targets, but eventually they move on to Christians who don't convert to their sect, including Catholics, Baptists, and Quakers. As for African Americans, they get segregated and resettled in parts of the Midwest, sort of like what happened to Native Americans and to Black Africans in South Africa. But as for women, the first thing they do is simultaneously freeze all financial accounts held by women, remove all women from joint accounts, revert all property owned by women to their closest male relative or to the state, and remove women from all paid positions. A woman's place is one of submission to her father or her husband, and as such, she cannot own property of any kind or have any kind of work outside the house. They also aren't allowed to read anymore, or have any kind of an education, formal or otherwise. Eventually, the only accepted dress for women becomes the habit, the shapeless full-length robe associated with nuns. The color of each habit is based on the woman's role. Blue for wives, white for daughters, green for Marthas, which is a new term for maids and housekeepers, and brown for the aunts, a group of women who enforce this new regime and get perks for doing so, like being allowed to read and being allowed to walk outside unaccompanied. There are also econowives for the low-ranking men, and they have to wear a rainbow-colored habit since they perform all of the roles themselves. And then there's red for the handmaids, a new sort of household position. See, because of the declining birth rate, the Sons of Jacob decided that they would have to do something to combat that. So they declare that all second marriages and all partnerships out of wedlock were illegal, and they locked up all the women who were a party to these relationships. These women were then re-educated by the aunts to accept their new roles as vessels, women whose only worth is the fact that they can still give birth. The idea is that if a wife can't give her husband a child, the husband can bring in a handmaid to be a surrogate mother. It's all based on Genesis chapter 16, in which Abram, not Abraham yet, just Abram, has sex with his wife Sarai's handmaiden at her request, since Sarai was too old to conceive. To make a long story short, things don't actually turn out well for the handmaid or her son, but hey, when has context ever stopped anyone from interpreting the Bible? The point is that handmaids are entirely defined by their uterus and can only keep their position if they successfully bear a child. Also note that the idea of male infertility is forbidden. So if a woman fails to conceive, it is always her fault. This is especially problematic for handmaids, since the elite commanders who rate their services may have all become infertile thanks to someone using a modified mumps virus on them. Usually what happens is their wives find a surrogate father, a doctor or a manservant. And if a handmaid should fail to conceive in 3 households, she will either be declared an unwoman and summarily executed, or be shipped off to the colonies, a euphemism for work camps and toxic waste cleanup crews. Life expectancy in the colonies is very short. On the bright side, the Republic of Gilead doesn't last forever. The higher-ups and the Sons of Jacobs began purging each other basically within a few years of taking power, and they eventually fell to pieces. It also didn't help that no other Western nation was going through this fundamentalist civil war, and so they were basically isolated from the onset. Again, the political situation is left vague, but by the date depicted in the historical notes, 2195, Gilead has long since disappeared. The story. First of all, I should explain that this is not a traditional narrative. The concept is that a woman has dictated her memoirs onto a bunch of cassette tapes while she was hiding out in a house on the underground Female Road, which smuggles women out of Gilead and into Canada. She tends to jump around a lot between time periods and to go off on tangents, so the book has a very stream of consciousness feel to it. But for the sake of making a good summary, I'll go in chronological order. The protagonist, who is only identified as of Fred, was born to a second-wave feminist who fought in favor of abortion and had her only child when she was 37. The protagonist never met her father, but that's because her mother wanted a baby, not a husband. She has a rather low opinion of men overall. When the protagonist goes to college, she becomes lifelong friends with her roommate, Moira, although Moira doesn't come out about being a lesbian until after they both graduate. The protagonist gets a job transcribing books to digital media for a library, and it's around this point that she meets and falls in love with Luke, who is unhappily married at the time. It takes him a few years to finalize his divorce, but after that, the two of them marry and have a daughter, who is also unnamed. Sometime after the Sons of Jacob take power, the family tries to flee to Canada using fake passports, but they get discovered and eventually end up running through the woods. The protagonist and her daughter are caught. While she hears a few gunshots, she never finds out what happens to Luke. Because she was Luke's second wife, and she's proven that she's fertile, the protagonist is forced to become a handmaid, and her daughter is given to another family to raise. While she's at the re-education center, Moira shows up and the two have the chance to reconnect. After a few months, however, Moira manages to hold an ant hostage with a lever from a toilet bowl and steals her habit and papers in order to escape. The protagonist, on the other hand, goes all the way through the training and becomes a handmaid. The book's main plot begins as she starts her third assignment and takes the name of Fred, since Fred is the name of her commander. Commander being the name for the elite Sons of Jacob. The commander's wife in this household once went by the name Serena Joy. Back in her prime, she was an outspoken critic of women's liberation. Naturally, this meant going on lecture tours and spending very little time in the home herself, something she regarded as a sacrifice made for the sake of other women. But surprise, surprise, she's been fairly miserable now that all that she's allowed to do is sit at home, knit scarves, and go drink wine with the neighbors' wives when one of them gets sick. Naturally, the wives of the neighborhood get sick often, and in shifts. The fact that she has to watch her husband cheat on her in some crazy-ass handmaid ceremony once a month, it's just icing on the cake. For her part, Fred has almost nothing to do all day. She can walk to the food market once per day with an assigned partner of Glenn, but that's about it. She has a room she can sit in with a shatterproof window that won't open all the way. She isn't allowed to have anything sharp or anything that could start a fire. and they removed the chandelier because one of the previous handmaids used it to hang herself. She can't even read to pass the time, but they did miss a pillow with the word faith on it, and one of the old handmaids scratched the words Nolite te bastardes carborundorum into a closet wall. She doesn't know what it means at first, but she eventually finds out it's mock Latin for don't let the bastards grind you down. Over time, Glen opens up to Fred and reveals that she's part of a resistance movement, Mayday. She asks Fred to gather information, but Fred is too scared to do anything serious. Meanwhile, the commander has started to ask Fred to come to his office in secret on certain nights. Once there, he has her play Scrabble with him. He also watches as she does other forbidden things, like read black market women's magazines and rub on moisturizing hand lotion, and kiss him from time to time. No sex, though. Fred eventually realizes that what the commander is looking for is vindication. He played a major role in stripping women of all their rights and power, and he wants to prove to at least one of them that what he did was the right thing, and not a crime against humanity. After all, the women are safe now, aren't they? They can walk the streets without fearing assault. They can focus on raising children and taking care of the house, and they don't have to worry about domestic abuse or the random and conflicting feelings of love. Eventually, the commander takes Fred to a whorehouse called Jezebel's, because of course there are still whorehouses, just like there's probably still a lot of domestic abuse that nobody talks about anymore because women don't have a forum to speak their mind. Not to mention the ritualized rape that is the handmaid ceremony. But while she's there, Fred encounters Moira. Turns out they caught her in Maine and gave her a choice, either the colonies or prostitution. She chose prostitution, and she's decided to make the best of a bad situation. That is the last time Fred sees her, however. Meanwhile, the commander's wife has set up Fred with their chauffeur, Nick. The idea is that if she can get pregnant by Nick, the wife will have her baby, and Fred will be gone. And for her part, Fred gets, well, not love exactly, but the sex is better than anything else she has going on in her life. In the last part of the book, Fred attends a woman's salvaging and a particution. Salvaging is a euphemism for execution by hanging, which is segregated by sex. But the particution is something a little different. The ants gather all the handmaids together and have them surround a drugged and bound man. The man the ants say is guilty of rape and killing an unborn child, although this is, of course, not actually the case. But after saying this, the handmaids are allowed to tear the man to shreds. This is apparently some son of Jacob's idea of giving the handmaids an outlet for their pent-up rage and frustration. Soon after this, Fred meets a new Glen, because the last one was discovered and hanged herself. That evening, a black van comes to pick up Fred. Nick tells her that they secretly work for Mayday and are going to get her out. This turns out to be true, based on where the future historians find her cassette tapes, but whether Fred went on to escape the country is forever a mystery. The analysis. You know, I've noticed a common theme running through all these dystopias: powerlessness. The government, society, or whatever else is in charge has taken away the individual's ability to choose. And they've done so because they think they know better than you. Whatever ideology they enforce is practically window dressing compared to this one aspect. You don't deserve to have an independent thought, idea, or decision because they might be wrong. And so the government wisely takes away your ability to choose. Now, this sort of thing does happen in real life. Cars come with safety features like seatbelts and airbags because they can't trust drivers to always drive safely. And the government forces car companies to add safety features because they can't trust the companies to put passenger safety over cutting costs. We have laws and regulations for murder, theft, rape, and all kinds of things because we can't trust people to always make the best decisions and we want to either mitigate the damage of a bad decision or force people to face consequences for one afterwards. Dystopias take this urge to regulate and dial it up to an illogical extreme. But what sets The Handmaid's Tale apart is the fact that women have had much less power over the people around them and even over their own bodies. And historically speaking, this only turned a corner very recently. At one point, women weren't allowed to vote, women weren't allowed to own property, they could only work in a very small number of professions, and if they were beaten or raped by their husbands, that wasn't even grounds for a divorce in the countries that allowed divorces. Things have improved gradually, but equality still escapes us. Hell, things are still bad in places like Africa, the Middle East, India, and China. The Taliban was infamous for going even farther than this book does in their oppression of women. Yeah, even farther. 1984 is never going to literally happen, but The Handmaid's Tale already fucking has. And they didn't need electronic currency or a plummeting birth rate to do it either. Something else that struck me about this novel was the way it described the female response to men making a power grab. It reminded me of something I once heard in a psychology class, that women are more likely to be passive than men. Now again, I'm not going to speculate as to the causes that underpin this difference, but research does show that while men and women experience anger at about the same rate, how this experience plays out is, on the whole, different. For men, it's a sudden outburst, a short but active display of anger that may or may not include insults, shouting, throwing things, and getting physically violent. Women, on the other hand, are more likely to bottle up their anger and hold on to it for longer, expressing it through vicious gossip and avoidance. Neither of these approaches is healthy, but in particular, this difference leads men to think that women aren't angry when they are, since they expect a lot of shouting to go with anger, and women frequently don't deliver. The idea in Handmaid is that because women aren't inclined to struggle, and because they had no time to organize, this usurpation of their rights was a lot easier than it should have been. The book also spends a moment to describe how men are also pigeonholed and stereotyped by gender discrimination. Men are a lot better off than women overall, but they basically have to join the military, have to revel in the violence and cheer on Gilead's victories, and the only time they can so much as touch a woman is at a brothel, or else when the government declares that they've proven themselves worthy enough to be assigned a 14-year-old wife. And while the government doesn't care that Moira is gay, so long as she opens her legs for the men who visit Jezebels, gay men who are discovered are executed. I can only imagine it's at least as bad to be a transgender, or even just a transvestite. Thanks for joining me again today for Dystopia Corner. I hope you'll join me next time for a movie about sapience, feminism, and or both.